Hey everybody, I know it's bizarre for me to be streaming on a Saturday morning, but the truth of the matter is there's some work I have to do around 1 o'clock. So I figured why not do a stream while I'm waiting. I kind of have to be on call. I should probably be getting some emails soon. So in the meantime, why don't I just come on and say hi to everybody? So excuse me. This is something I've been meaning to do for a while, so I'm just going to go through a whole bunch of different uh, political tests. So we have the first one, which is the Russian Revolution, which was kind of an interesting one. The Russian Revolution is an interesting case, excuse me, because there really wasn't a right as we would understand it today. You had a bunch of different left-wing factions. And that's just kind of, by the time of the Russian Revolution, absolutely no one supported the Tsar. You basically had liberals and conservatives and not a lot of other people. So let's see where I would go. So we have a bunch of different factions. We have the Black Hundreds, which I guess it's hard to describe the Black Hundreds. They were kind of radical supporters of the Tsar, the Orthodox Church, and anti-Semitic. The Cadets were kind of a liberal party. I think it's the best way to describe them. Liberal conservative party. Then you have a bunch of other groups. You have the Mensheviks, the right Mensheviks, which are just kind of, I guess, kind of left-wing nationalists. Then you have a bunch of other people kind of in the middle. So let's start this. So first question is the economy. Private property is a natural right and a vital economic institution. Yes, private property is sacred. The agrarian question can only be resolved through socialization of all land. Land should become property of the people as a whole and should not be bought or sold. I disagree. I do think land reform was probably necessary. Generally speaking, from my memory of various types of land reform, it's normally pretty successful. I know in Japan, when they enacted land reform, it did really help the peasantry out. I think in a lot of cases, compensated land reform is a good idea, because very often landlords don't actually use most of their productive land. I favor swift nationalization of the key sectors of industry. Nationalization generally doesn't work. Let's see here. A universal shortening of the workday to 8 hours is essential. Yeah, working conditions were absolutely horrific in Russia. Someone asks, how is my health? Good, actually. I finished my antibiotics. My mouth is pretty much healed up. Just a little sensitive. It should be fine in a couple days. The workers must be given control of industrial enterprises. I'm going to say neutral because I think the workers should have had some say. In general, I think there needs to be a balance between management and worker concerns. Elections should be direct, universal, direct, fair, and secret. I guess I would lean. I mean, you have to understand this is the context of Russia, where the people had absolutely no representation. So I do think fairly universal male suffrage elections are preferable to absolute autocracy. The state, as a matter of principle, does not have a right to limit freedom of speech or assembly. I'm generally in favor of that. I mean, if I was in government, I would have shut the Bolsheviks down. But, yeah. Women should receive rights equal to those of men. Strongly disagree. The church should be separated from the state. Now, this is an interesting question, because in Russia, I think it should have been more secular, because the church was basically just an arm of the state instead of kind of a counterbalance and complementary. So I'm going to be neutral on this one. The death penalty is a vital means of punishment. I support the death penalty, so we'll go with that. Let's see here. The war with Germany, Austro-Hungary, Bulgaria, and the Ottoman Empire has been going on for 3 years. This war must be swiftly ended through a democratic peace without annexation or levies. I don't know what that means. Do they mean annexation of Russia? I don't really understand it, so I'm going to go with neutral. It is vital to defend the revolution, but not to carry out attacks. Well, in the context of Russia, Russia was in no position to go to war during or after the revolution. We should honor responsibilities to our allies, war until a victorious end. Like I said, Russia was in no condition to continue the war, so I'm going to be kind of on the side of peace. Although maybe what Russia could have done is just try to stay in the war, but not launch any offensives until Germany lost on the Western Front. Democratization of the army is good, that's a horrible idea. Military dictatorship is the best way to get out of the revolutionary crisis. Yeah, they needed strong leadership. Denkin or maybe one of the moderate conservatives probably would have been a good idea. I support the provisional government. The provisional government was incompetent, but to be fair to Kerensky, there really wasn't a huge amount he could have done during that time period. Everything was just completely crazy, and they were much more preferable to the Bolsheviks that came afterwards. The present state of the revolution demands a lengthy period of agreement between all democratic forces. I tend to agree. I am for the swift convocation of the Constituent Assembly. Yeah, they needed to get that going. The Soviet of worker, soldier, and peasant deputies should take over the reins of state power. No, screw communism. The city Dumas are the proper mechanism for self-government. We don't need any other. Yeah, that I think is fair. Like I said, representation is generally speaking a good thing. I think it has to be, as I've said, restricted to somewhat older tax-paying males, but I do think everyone does need to have a say in how government operates. The working class is the driving force of the revolution. I mean, that's just kind of an objective fact that it was. The state should be swiftly liquidated and replaced by people's self-government, which would just be another state. It sounds really dumb. A federal state structure is the best option for multinational Russia. That's true. You have a lot of different nationalities in Russia. A country as big as Russia needs federalism. Russia should continue to be a major power, retaining its continental and overseas colonies ruled from the center. I guess I agree. A multi-party system is capable of serving to stabilize democratic power. I have mixed feelings about parties. I think it would probably be preferable to just have no political parties and just to have everybody as an independent. Political parties are kind of poison. I'm not saying that in the current context, but in an ideal society, you probably shouldn't have them. Russia's political system should develop in the direction of parliamentarianism. I guess. I prefer kind of American style, but that doesn't sound too bad. Our end goal is socialism. Screw socialism. So I got Menshevik defensist. So what's right social revolutionaries? The right wing of the Social Revolutionary Party congregated. Okay. The labor group. I never understand what the difference between the left and right social revolutionaries is. It's really, yeah, I don't really get it, to be perfectly honest. I guess the right social revolutionaries were more in favor of continuing the war, and the left was more against it. Because the left favored the Treaty of Brest, Lidvosk, whereas the right was against whereas the left was against it. The Black Hundreds were kind of like proto-fascism, I guess you could call them. Let's see here. The largest political party in pre-revolutionary Russia. Yeah, because if you look at the elections, let me just look at this. 1917. There is pretty much no right-wing forces during the various Russian parliaments. Like, if we look at the first elections held, you had the moderate Social Democrats, you had the Cadets or the Liberal Party, then you had the Bolsheviks, then you had basically a bunch of other people, And the only semi-right-wing party, the Union of October 17th, got virtually no votes. And this was just kind of a common problem with the czars, is they alienated everybody except for except for like the far right. So this was after they basically kind of changed the voting system. But even so, the right didn't do particularly well. I mean, I guess the like center right won that election, but overall they didn't win a ton. Let's see here. And then when they held a I don't know if it's semi-open. The center right only got like virtually no votes. Yeah, that's kind of the issue. Let's see here. What do we have? Canadian political spectrum test. What do you think of private healthcare? It should be allowed. Oh. Okay. That's really weird. I don't know what this is even. Okay, that's strange. What's this? The French political spectrum test. Okay, that's not an actual test you can do. Vote compass. Okay, let's see what the CBC vote compass is like. Canada votes. So let's see who I should have voted for in the last federal party. Let's see here. 1L Q 8P C. Invalid postal code. Okay, let me just look for a random postal code generator. Sucks. Okay, continue. Okay. We're just gonna go with Ontario. Okay, good. I can do it without having to enter a postal code. Let's see here. Longer prison sentences are the best way to prevent crime. Well, the best way to prevent crime is not to bring people prone to criminality in. But since that's not an option, yeah. Handguns should be banned in Canada. No, handguns aren't the problem. Bringing in certain people with low impulse control is the problem. To what extent should law enforcement be able to monitor the online activity of Canadians? I'm against online monitoring. Let's see here. Yeah, most of it is, let's see, paleoconic tectonic. Lower Southern talked with a couple art writers, gets in a conflict with Rebel Media, and Rebel makes a ton of pro-Israel videos. Coincidence? Israel, you have to understand, for a lot of kind of more mainstream people with some edgy tendencies, Israel is kind of a proxy. It's kind of the easiest way to show that you support ethnic nationalism to a certain extent is to be pro-Israel. How many new immigrants should Canada admit? Much fewer. How much should be done to accommodate religious minorities in Canada? Much less. A lot of them shouldn't even be here. Only those who speak both English and French should be appointed to the Supreme Court. I disagree with that. Canada should end ties to the monarchy. I'm indifferent to the monarchy, to be perfectly honest. The Senate should be abolished. I don't have a position on the Senate. The Senate's irrelevant. How much should Canada do to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions? I think ideally it would be nice if we could just transition to a cleaner source of electricity. I don't believe in anthropomorphic global warming, really. But I do think that emissions are bad for human health and the environment for other reasons. At the moment, though, we can't gimp our economy. The Canadian government should put a price on carbon. No. No new pipelines should be built in Canada. They always say that, but they have no solution. Like, if we don't build pipelines, then you have to transport the shit by ship or by truck. and that's much more dangerous. So, yeah, we need pipelines. How much should the wealthier people pay in taxes? I mean, somewhat less. Taxes are too high across the board. I do think progressive income tax, I think taxes are too high overall, but I do think progressive income tax makes sense. How much tax should corporations pay? It's a little high, so maybe a bit less. Quebec should be formally recognized as a nation in the Constitution. It is a nation. It's an ethnic, cultural, and linguistic group. Quebec should be an independent state. I'm kind of indifferent to this question. I don't think Quebec would be viable as an independent state. I kind of just think it should be given as much autonomy as it wants. So I'm neutral. The most effective way to create jobs in Canada is to lower taxes. That's generally speaking the most effective way. Canada's budget should be balanced no matter what. Some would agree. Terminally ill patients should be able to end their own lives with medical assistance. So they said this, and basically once Justin Trudeau implemented this, he told doctors that they have to do it or they have to find someone who will do it. So if you're a Catholic doctor, or I don't know what the Hindu position is, but if it's against your personal morals, then fuck you. So I'm against that. Abortion should be allowed in all cases, regardless of the reason. No, I'm against the slaughter of the unborn. Possession of marijuana should be a critical offense. I'm neutral. How much power should unions have? See, that's kind of the thing about it. I'm not against unions. The problem with unions is they don't really stick up for workers' rights anymore. They just kind of pursue normal political, like just dumb political correctness. So I guess somewhat less, mainly public sector unions. Government workers should not be allowed to strike. It's bullshit that government workers can strike. How involved should the Canadian military be in the fight against ISIS? Much more. Kill every last member of ISIS. Take no prisoners. How supportive should Canada be of Israel? I'm actually fairly supportive of Israel. Harper was fairly supportive, so I'll go with that. How much should Canada spend on foreign aid? Somewhat less. Let's see. Someone is asking, do you think rape victims should be able to get abortions? My general position is I don't think it should be legal or illegal. If it depends. I would be happy if abortion was banned in all cases except for rape, incest, or threat to the life of the mother. You have to understand, I've seen statistics, and that's like 1 or 2% of abortions. Elective abortion is like 97%. Like virtually all. It's very, very, very few cases that's actually the reason. But that wouldn't really bother me if that was the only cases that were permitted. How much should the government do to make amends for past treatment of Canadians? Let's see here. I'd say less. Aboriginal people in Canada should have more control over their ancestral territory. I actually strongly agree with that. I think if they had more autonomy and they depended less on government aid, they might become more responsible. How much of a role should the private sector have in healthcare? I think healthcare needs to be somewhat privatized. I do think there needs to remain public healthcare, but it's clearly not working that well. Illicit drug users should have access to safe injection sites. The causation is asking, will I do a reaction review of the new Ghost in the Shell movie? Yes, I will. I'm generally speaking against this because I think it encourages bad behavior. Canada should introduce a publicly funded childcare program. I don't have a position on that. So let's see, what am I going to get? Liberal Party of Canada. Oh, okay. I'd never vote for the Liberal Party. I'd never vote for the Green Party. I did vote for the Conservative Party. Is it just me or does Argent's voice sound more deep? It's just early in the morning, so I'm a bit stuffed up. Well, I guess 10:30 isn't early, but it's early on the weekend. I'd be more likely to vote for the NDP than the Liberals, so I'll give that a 3. I'll give Harper a 10, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 9. How likely is it the people in your riding will elect the Conservative Party? Well, yeah. I'm just going to skip these. If a Canadian federal election were to take place, who would you vote for? Conservative Party. Argent, can you recommend any good literature arguing for the existence of God? Anything William Lane Craig has ever done. On his website, he has a podcast called Defenders, where he basically goes through all of it in big depth. Let's see here. That would be 1990. Have you been a student? No. What occupational era do you work in? I'll just go with that. That's probably the closest. What is your religion? Catholicism. What is the first language I learned? English. Spiritual beliefs are very important. I actually admit I voted Liberal in my first election, to my shame. Very interested. Daily. What news source do I read most often? I don't really read Canadian ones. So I don't know what to even put here. I guess the Rebel. Argent, do you want weapons to be legal in schools? I don't really know, to be perfectly honest. Probably, I'd lean towards against it. It depends if it's like a university or a public school or a high school. I don't think in public or high school. University, though, is kind of a different matter. Have you done any of the following? Yes. Yes. I signed a petition against M103. I haven't done that. I didn't actually donate to the Tories. I did actually join the party so I could vote in the leadership election. Belong to a union? No. I've boycotted Starbucks. In politics, would you place yourself on 0 to 10? 0. Canada, what is your cultural origins? That would be English. How many people live in your household? 4. Combined household income. I'll go with my income, I guess. Do you use Twitter? No. So, yeah, I got basically CPC. That is not surprising at all. Yeah, so basically to the right of the Conservative Party. As far right as you can really go in Canadian politics. Nowhere really near anybody other than the CPC. I mean, I don't really agree with the CPC on most things, but I'll take them over Justin Trudeau. I'd take a potted plant over Justin Trudeau. Let's see here. Someone's asking for a good apologetic source. So this is a good, I think in terms of, not necessarily, let's see here. Where is William Lane Craig's podcast? Defenders podcast. This is a good podcast if you're looking for just a lot of basic stuff on the existence of God. So, let's see here. So we have all the arguments here. We have stuff on God. We have contingency, cosmological, question and answer, theological arguments. So just in terms of doing debates, I guess, kind of arguments for God without relying on biblical authority, he is probably, I think, the best person at it. I believe he's only lost one or two debates, and I think it was on like moral or ethical issues. It was something he's not really an expert in. Let's see, Saskatchewan provincial election. Don't know your postal code. I'll just pick a random area. Now, politics in Saskatchewan is kind of interesting because the NDP governed the province for like 30-something years. And what wound up happening is the Conservative and Liberal Party merged to found the Saskatchewan Party, which is what the Conservative Party there is known as. And they basically completely dominate the province. Let's see, environmental regulation results in job losses. I would agree because Saskatchewan's economy is based on resources, oil and farming. Saskatchewan should put a price on carbon that would destroy it. Saskatchewan used to be one of the poorest provinces in Canada, and now it's pretty wealthy because we have a lot of oil money there. How much should Saskatchewan government invest in renewable energy? See, I'm actually in favor of renewable energy. I just don't think it's viable at the current point in time. Let's see here. By the way, I'm going to be on a podcast tonight. Let me just see here. Let me remember what his name is. I got a invitation to be on one. I am going to be on Chris Betchloff's podcast tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. He will send me a link. I'll put up a video maybe on it. So I'm going to say about the same now. Classes in Saskatchewan schools should be smaller even if it costs taxpayers more. For what I've seen in the studies, class size doesn't matter that much. How much should provincial government's funding should students receive to help pay for university? I don't know how it works in Saskatchewan. Private religious schools in Saskatchewan should not receive government funding. There aren't that many Muzzies in Saskatchewan, so most of it's probably Christians. Saskatchewan government should share its resource revenues with First Nations. Oh, is it still saying I'm playing Popeye 2? What the fuck? Okay, let me see if I can disable that. Let's see here. It depends. If the revenues come from land they own, then yes. So I'm just going to say neutral. Excuse me. How much funding should Saskatchewan contribute to schools on First Nation reserves? I think they should fund their own schools. How much influence should unions have in Saskatchewan? I would imagine since it used to be a socialist province, probably less. Public sector workers should not be allowed to strike, yes. The government should increase access to healthcare in northern communities, even if it's cheaper to treat those patients in other areas. I mean, in a lot of cases, you need the northern communities because that's where the resources are. In general, services provided to the elderly and long-term care homes are adequate. I have no idea. People should be able to pay for faster access to medical treatment. I don't really see why you'd be against that. How many privately owned liquor stores should there be in Saskatchewan? Many more. For those of you who don't know, in a lot of Canadian provinces, the alcohol industry is nationalized. Up until like last year, all liquor in Ontario was only sold at government stores. You have the LCBO and the beer store, and they sell basically all alcohol. Let's see. All new road infrastructure in Saskatchewan should be funded by the government, not the private sector. I don't know. How many government sectors should be outsourced to the private sector? I'd say more. Cutting taxes is the best way to create jobs. It normally is. There's other ways to do it, but I don't know. Paying less taxes normally encourages private initiative. Film production companies should receive special tax breaks. Yeah, that normally speaking works. It really has helped out the economy in Toronto and Vancouver. How much tax should corporations pay? Less. How high should the minimum wage be? I'm actually normally in favor of a minimum wage. I don't know what it is in Saskatchewan, but I guess what we have in Ontario is it goes up by a certain amount a year, indexed to inflation. So that works pretty good. How much should government do to reduce the gap between rich and poor? The gap between rich and poor isn't really that bad in Canada. About the same. Money on low-income housing, I don't know. Let's see. The provincial budget deficit should be reduced. Yes. Public schools should start every day with a Christian prayer. Yes. Strip clubs should be legal in Saskatchewan. I lean towards no. All schools in Saskatchewan should be legally required to permit gay straight alliance groups. No, they should be banned. Only residents of Saskatchewan should be allowed to purchase farmland in the province. I think only Canadian citizens should be, but it doesn't ask that question. Companies based in Saskatchewan should be given special preference when bidding for government contracts. Yes. There should be no restrictions on trade between Saskatchewan and other provinces. I have no idea. How much regulation should there be on businesses? As someone who's worked in the private sector, regulation is fucking crazy. So much less. So let's see what they give me. I mean, I know it's going to be the Saskatchewan party, but let's see by how much. Come on. Skip. Oh, come on. Fuck this. Just let me see my results. I don't want to look at all this crap. I want to know who I should vote for. Oh, fuck you. Let me read it. Read. Let's see here. So basically the Saskatchewan party, which is about what I expected. Titus Hornsby asked, why are federal and provincial parties separate in Canada? Now, the NDP is not actually separate. Basically, they used to not be as separate. There's a lot of regional differences in terms of political culture in Canada. For instance, the Liberal Party only does good in more urban areas. Like when you look at Western provinces, in the West, you have Conservatives and the NDP who do pretty well in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta, but no Liberal Party. Just because the Liberal Party is an urban party, it has nothing to offer rural people. It depends on a lot of things. Like in the East Coast, the East Coast is pretty poor, so they're dependent on government subsidies. So they tend to favor the Liberals because the Liberals are the most in favor of government centralization. And the Conservative Party doesn't have much appeal to them. In Ontario, it's kind of rural and suburban Ontario tends to support the Conservatives, whereas the urban areas vote Liberal. There's very different political cultures. Another issue is the NDP arrived fairly late on the scene. I think they're only formed in like the 1970s. Also, you have to keep in mind that the Federal Conservative Party ceased to exist after the 1991 election. Here, let me just look through a couple of Canadian elections. Okay, so the Canadian federal election of 1984 was the largest victory the Tories ever won. With Mulroney got 50% of the federal vote and got 2/3 of the seats in Parliament. So he got 211 seats. Then in the next election, the Tories won again, but with a much reduced majority. So just think about this for a minute. Okay, so the Tories won 169 seats in the 1988 election. Then we go to 1933, and the Tories were reduced from 156 to 2 seats over the course of one election. So their vote basically collapsed and they ceased to exist as a political party. The NDP also collapsed and more or less ceased to exist as a political party. What wound up happening is the Conservative Party split into three groups. The Quebec wing of the Conservative Party became the Bloc Québécois, which is a kind of a Quebec nationalist party. The western half of the party became the Reform Party, which eventually became the Alliance Party and is the basis of the modern Conservative Party. And the Federal Progressive Conservative Party only existed in Ontario and the eastern provinces. So the Federal Conservative Party split into three pieces, and the Liberals were able to take advantage of that and gained a massive number of seats. Then we had basically the Reform Party was just kind of continued to be irrelevant. Once we get into 2002, basically what happened was they were convinced that the Liberal Party would govern Canada forever, and we had the Unite the Right initiative, where the Progressive Conservatives and the Alliance Party merged into one party. So we have the modern day Conservative Party, which is kind of a merger of the various ones. We also had Alberta has kind of different politics, so let's go back a couple elections. So what we used to have in Western Canada prior to this was we had a party called the Social Credit Party, which was a conservative party that only ran in Alberta. And Social Credit was basically a conservative party, kind of a Christian conservative party that used to basically win all the seats in Alberta. In general, though, throughout virtually all of Canadian history, the Liberal Party has just been in government. So yeah, that was the Alberta election. What else do we have? Canada, I side with. Okay, back. Sorry about that. Let's see here. Political coordinates test. What is this? Political spectrum test. Let's do the political compass because it's kind of let's see here. People are saying he calls us family. Well, you guys are, I guess, a bit, but it was more my IRL family. Let's see your political compass. Now, the political compass is super, super biased, but let's look at this. Excuse me. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. I don't even really know what that means. I don't like economic globalization. I guess I agree with that. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. I guess I wouldn't because I don't support most of the things my government's doing. No one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Strongly disagree. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Strongly agree. It depends which race you're talking about. I think Asians and whites are more or less equal, just different. When we're talking about a certain couple groups of people, though, yes. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That is a blanket statement, and I don't even know how to answer that. I guess I slightly agree. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Fuck international law. There is a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I don't even really know what that means. Next page. People are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. That's some retarded commie shit. Strongly disagree. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. That's a really difficult question to answer. Let's see here. Someone says I didn't know I was that right wing. Cool. I hide my power level a bit just because I don't want to get shut down. Also, there's certain groups of people who I'm unsavory, who are kind of unsavory that I just don't like to be associated with. Like, for all intents and purposes, I am basically a white nationalist. I just don't call myself one because of how a lot of people behave who identify that way. And just general I don't know, it's kind of a shitty community. So I don't call myself that, even though it basically am. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. That's difficult because they're both cancerous to society. I'm going to disagree. I think inflation can be worse. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. No, we don't. Well, obviously they require regulation. I mean, regulated capitalism just works. That's kind of an objective fact at this point in time. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. I've never understood what the hell that even means. It's just such a vague statement. Does that mean everybody works, everybody eats? I don't know. It's a sad reflection of our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded customer product. Like, I don't get, why is this bad? You can get a case of water now for like $2 at a Canadian store, like 18 bottles of water. It's like throughout human history, think about this. Throughout human history in third world countries, people, like, I think it's in some countries, like 50 to 70% of the population doesn't have access to clean water. And capitalism has made us so rich, has improved our lives so much that for virtually nothing you can go to the store and buy a huge amount of bottled water. It's amazing, and that's partially due to technology and social trust, but it's also due to capitalism. So I strongly disagree. I think it's great. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Well, obviously it should be. I mean, how else? Like, if land can't be bought or sold, people can't own their own houses and the land under their houses. In general, like, this is, once again, an Anglo thing, but I think the more people who are property owners, it's better because people need to have skin in the game. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to society. I actually agree with that. I have no problem with the super rich if they're like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or even Mark Zuckerberg, because they produced a good or a service that was of a lot of value to society. They created a ton of just wealth. My issue is more people like George Soros, who just kind of manipulate shit. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. That's a difficult question. Because the production of wealth isn't of itself normally a good thing for society. I don't know. I guess I slightly disagree. Um, the rich are too highly taxed. Let's see. Where me and Argent live, houses are fucking crazy expensive. Let's see here. For those of you who don't know, to rent a bachelor apartment, that is the cheapest way you can live on your own in Toronto, is about $1,000 to $1,200 a month, at least. And I've talked to people from Europe, and in some European countries, it's like 200 or 300 euros. It's extremely expensive here. The average housing price in Toronto is like 700K now. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. I generally agree. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Yes. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. I don't really know how to explain that. The freer the market, the freer the people. I mean, free markets are good, but they need to be regulated. I don't know. You can have a free market, but a dildo society. People are... Oh, okay. Did I miss one? Protectionism is sometimes necessary. Yes. Abortion when the woman's life is threatened should always be illegal. Yes. All authorities should be questioned. I mean, it's difficult because I do think to some degree, but part of the problem is our current authority is just really bad. I guess I somewhat agree. Those in Euro-poor countries, they earn 4 times less than they do in Canada. It's, I don't know. I know people who live in Belgium who pay like half. So like even some like shitty ones. Let's see here. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Yeah, I generally agree with that. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Strongly disagree. I remember Glenn Beck, when I stopped listening to him, actually, he was advocating to privatize all the federal parks. Like, that was kind of a rant he was going on, was he was campaigning to get rid of national parks. Which, if that is, like, viewed as the biggest priority, that's pretty disturbing. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. If you're going to have schools, you should impose some measure of discipline on students. All people have their rights, but it's better for us that different sorts of people keep to their own kind. I mean, that's just natural human nature. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Yes. It's natural for children to keep secrets from their parents. Of course it is. Just, I mean, national parks are, they don't cost anything. It's like less than 1% of the federal budget. And you have these, like, often amazing places. Like in Ontario, there's this provincial park. My family went to a lot of places called the Pinery, and it's beautiful. There's no mosquitoes there because Lake Huron is too rough for mosquitoes to lay eggs on. So it's beautiful, sandy. There's pine trees. It's just gorgeous. If you ever get a chance, go camp there. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. I kind of agree just because it's a waste of the police's time. The primary function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. Somewhat agree. There's other aspects to it. Actually, when we're talking about government funding, in Canada, in December, they had a special deal for the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, where if you bought 3 or more tickets, each ticket was only $25. So I bought a bunch of, I think I bought like 3 or 4 tickets, so I can go to some concerts for the next half of the year, which will be cool. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. I mean, it's kind of a dumb question because people who are like low-functioning autism don't reproduce anyways. The most important thing for children is to learn to accept discipline. I don't know. It's such a blanket statement. There are no savage and civilized peoples. There are only different cultures. Disagree. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Once again, blanket statement. Let's see here. When you are in trouble, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I generally disagree. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their country. I normally agree with that. It takes a couple generations if they're ethnically compatible. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. No, because corporations have to sell to as many people as possible. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. That depends. I'm going to agree just because the CBC in Canada is absolute cancer. Our liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. 100% agree. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. I mean, that's kind of obvious. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. No, because they just use it to spy on everybody. And they use it a lot for just, like, seeking out people like me who have never committed a real crime and just make mildly politically incorrect YouTube channels. Let's see here. The death penalty. I support the death penalty. One must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. Yes. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all. I hate abstract art. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. I don't really know. Let's see here. It's a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. Yes, a lot of just really bad criminals should be executed. The businessman, the manufacturer, more important than the writer and the artist. In the current environment, yes, because we have so many hack writers. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Strongly agree. Part of the issue is that women aren't having enough children. Multinational corporations are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. I have no idea. I kind of know what that means. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Disagree, I guess. Astrology accurately explains many things. Strongly disagree. You cannot be moral without being religious. I think everybody has a religion, or they hold certain beliefs in a religious way. Even if they are an atheist, I do think they still basically have a religion. So I agree. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the generally disadvantaged. I actually strongly disagree with that. Charity is not reliable enough. Some people are naturally unlucky. I agree. It's important that my child's school instill religious values. Strongly agree. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Strongly agree. A same-sex couple should be allowed to adopt children. No. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. I don't think it's possible, really. I don't think it's possible to ban it, to be perfectly honest. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. I actually agree just because I don't think it's possible to monitor it, and I don't want the government spying on everybody. No one can feel naturally homosexual. I don't really even know how that means. I mean, people can feel lots of things naturally. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. Strongly agree. So what did I get? Authoritarian left, which I always get. Mildly authoritarian left. Oh, that's funny. That's really funny that I got that. That's normally what I get, though. I always get authoritarian left when I do this test. Let's see. I got Sinn Féin in the Scottish National Party. The Scottish National Party is like the most dildo party possible. Okay, I love how they do these. These are such bullshit. How the hell is the Conservative Party like that authoritarian right? UKIP is... How are they like the Nazi Party? According to this, UKIP is as authoritarian as the BNP. How are the Liberal Democrats left right-wing authoritarian? This is such bullshit. Barack Obama is authoritarian right. Sure he is. Oh, I love it. It's such bullshit. UK independence referendum. Let's see here. What else do we have? These are all such bullshit. Canada. Let's see here. Conservative Party. No fucking way the Conservative Party. Liberal Party is authoritarian right. Are you fucking kidding me? NDP are not even left wing. What do they consider left wing? Like nationalizing all industry? To be like mildly left wing? Let's see, Australian election. Liberal Party, nationalist. Let's see, Green Party. To be libertarian on this, you gotta be like a fucking anarchist. Let's see, U.S. presidential election. Trump is basically where Adolf Hitler is. Hillary Clinton is right-wing authoritarian. Sure she is. Let's see, what else do we have here? German election. Yes, the alternative for Germany and this SDU are the same, politically speaking. The left, but the left is in Germany is like a communist party. Let's see, what else do they have? EU governments. They're all right-wing authoritarian. All right-wing authoritarian. Look at this. Okay, Hungary in Poland. Sweden is right-wing authoritarian. What the fuck? France. Holland. Holland's like the most dildo country on earth. Who do they consider not right-wing authoritarian? Like, you have to be in favor of, it's, oh. This is so funny. Okay, Denmark actually is sort of based. How the fuck is Sweden there, though? I mean, really. Slovenia, Malta, Lithuania, the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic is the most the most dildo country in Eastern Europe. Let's see here. U.S. presidential election, UK EU referendum. So yeah, that's the political compass is such a it's such bullshit. It's so lame. Let's see, what else do we have? The definitive political spectrum test. This will probably be the last one that I'm gonna do. I am patriotic. I don't know how to answer that question because I don't like Canada. Strongly agree. Poor people are usually poor because of the choices they made. I actually disagree with that. I believe that hard work is the key to success. It isn't always the key to success. Lots of people work hard. There's a lot of other aspects to it. Disagree. Let's see. I side with Japan. Let me see if there's an I side with Japan. I'm gonna talk about dildo. I have to do a video on it. Just because people occasionally ask me about it, and I don't think I've ever really gone into detail about it. Celebrity types. Okay, I don't know. Let's see, how long have I been going for? Oops. An hour. That's probably good, actually. I've gone through a lot of the stuff I wanted to get through. I have to go do some work now anyways. So I'll see you guys later. I'm on with Betch Loft tonight. So everybody have a good day.